Hey everyone, this is Steve Hardy with Atlantic Coast Contractors. Today we'll be doing a video about polyester membrane application for all-white manufacturing. Polyester membrane is a tight woven polyester fabric that gets embedded into R400 rubber. The polyester membrane is typically going to be used for standing water situations or if you want to add durability to the coating. The final application thickness when you install R400 rubber with an embedded polyester membrane is going to be between 35 and 44 mils. This polyester membrane can withstand anywhere from 1/2 inch all the way up to several inches of water on any type of roof covering. Most commonly, it's going to be installed on a modified bitumen roof covering, and that's what we're going to be showing you here today. And now we're going to be installing ProBond 200 across a modified bitumen roof covering. This is going to be the very first application of any of the all-white manufacturing products, and this must be used when you're installing polyester membrane. You must make sure that the polyester membrane is going to get a good bond to the roof covering, and you will do so by using the ProBond 200. Now with the ProBond 200 and a modified bitumen roof covering, you're going to do a bit heavier of an application than you would on a shingle roof or a tile roof, especially a tile roof because it's not near as porous. So what you'll want to do is you want to get a decent dip. You're going to let everything drip out so you don't make a big mess. And you're essentially going to move your puddle along the roof. So when you're having it thick enough that your puddle is going to be pushed along by your roller nap, that will ensure that it's soaking in between the granules on the modified bitumen covering. You want to make sure you get all your outside edges. You do want to be careful about not going over the edge. We all know customers don't like a white driveway. Once you start to get low, you take another dip. And rinse and repeat. Now, if you are working on a modified bitumen roof, sometimes you will have to walk over the ProBond 200. If you do so, just make sure you roll over your footprints. And the end result, what you want to see is just a nice milky coating all the way across every aspect of the roof, including all of your roof connections. Now, I have seen several different appliers make the common mistake of going too thick. If you leave a puddle that is too thick across a modified roof, such as this line running across here, that is actually going to hurt your bond, and that will make it so the R400 has a hard time bonding to the surface. So you're going to want to make sure that it's smoothed out completely and that you don't have any puddles across the roof. Now, depending on the thickness that you go, the average dry time is going to be about 10 to 15 minutes. The thicker you go, it could go up to 20 minutes, but on average with the right application rate, you should be fairly dry within 5 to 10 minutes and ready to coat within 15 to 20. Now, this is our polyester membrane. It comes in 3-foot rolls, and this is going to be applied directly to the sealer coat that was applied to this surface earlier. Now, you always want to lay it down on a flat surface, and that's why I mentioned before, if there's any voids on the roof, or especially on an older, beat-up, modified roof, you're going to want to float those rough areas out with a catalyst to make sure that you have a smooth base to apply the membrane. Some of the hardest parts of applying the membrane are making sure that there's no wrinkles throughout the roof covering, and also that it sits flush down to the seams. All right, so we're ready to begin applying our polyester membrane. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lay out one edge flat on the roof covering. Now when you're running this polyester membrane, you're always going to run it along the modified seams. If you run it against the modified seams, you're going to end up having an edge here that tends to lift up to the raised modified seam. Obviously this is a controlled environment here, so we don't have a lot of wind or a lot of problems getting it to lay flush. When you're on the roof, you will be dealing with a lot of wind typically. So the best thing to do is always to seal one corner. Then you're going to pull it snug as you run back your line, and then fill in the rest of it to make sure you don't end up with wrinkles. So we're going to go ahead and run out a couple feet. We're going to pull it snug. Then we're going to go ahead and seal that corner up there. All right, now that you've got your edge sealed here, you can go ahead and run it out the rest of the length. However long that may be, you're going to want to tweak it to keep it straight with the roof lines. Now, typically, if you are running on a modified roof and you're running along with the seams, you're going to go ahead and start along the modified seam to make sure that you push the membrane down into the seam. So now we've got a tight seal along this seam, and then we can work the edges out from the middle and work out every which direction and make sure that we don't end up with any wrinkles or any voids that are going to be left in between the membrane and the existing roof covering. Now, once you've got your field section laid out and you've got the majority of it coated with R400 rubber, you're going to lift up on the roll at the end to get a small slice going. You want to go ahead and seal here for me, Joseph? Now that we have this edge sealed, we're able to lift up a little bit on our membrane, and we're going to go ahead and cut the seam running across. Now, it's always good to pull against your membrane as you're cutting it. You will end up with a furrowed edge on whichever edge you're pulling on, and if you pull on it against the area that you're cutting and you're going to be attaching to the roof, then you're not going to end up with the furrowed edge on your roof covering. Now, if you do end up with a wrinkle, I'm going to go ahead and create a wrinkle here for you to show you what to do. So say you end up with a wrinkle here, and that will leave a void underneath the membrane. You're going to want to just lift up on the corner. As you lift up, you can have somebody come by with a roller, push it down, and then you get flush to the roof surface. So after your layer of membrane's on, you're just going to fill in the rest of the areas and make sure that you leave as little pinholes as possible and get a nice even application. All right, now on the roof covering, many roofs, you're not just going to be able to use the full sheets. You can buy smaller rolls from All White Manufacturing to get into the tough to reach areas, the corners, or anything that's a little bit difficult to get to with the full roll. So with these, you're going to want to have the same overlap. You're going to have a pretty significant overlap of 2 to 3 inches for smaller pieces and 4 inches for a full roll. So you'll just go ahead and roll out your section, make sure that there's no wrinkles. And as you're doing that, we'll go ahead and attach the end of it. That'll allow us to be able to pull on it so it doesn't come loose on the roof. You're going to pull it tight to make sure that you're not going to have any wrinkles throughout. And then you're going to seal down the entire run. Now, just like on a roof covering, you're going to want to get all the way over to the edge with your membrane. The rule of thumb is if you have a parapet wall that you're coming up to, you want to be within 1 inch of it. So here we're going to come right out to the edge, and that's still going to keep us with a 2-inch overlap on the outside edge. Okay. Now this concludes our polyester membrane application. This is going to be a total of 3 coats of R400 rubber, and it carries a 5-year warranty. Now, as we mentioned before, you want to make sure you put the polyester membrane in all standing water sections to make sure that the coating will not get eaten through by the standing water. When the polyester membrane is applied, you're going to end up with a smoother overall roof surface, and it is going to be fairly resilient to mold and mildew buildup due to the fungicide that's added into the R400 rubber. If you have any questions regarding the polyester membrane application, feel free to contact All White Manufacturing at 954-583-9178, and they'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about the system.